let's just jump right into today's explainer. We're looking at a fascinating collection of narratives examining various documented instances of unexplained phenomena. We're going to explore that thin veil between our day-to-day reality and the supernatural, relying entirely on digital documentation. By weaving together first-hand testimony and digital evidence caught on security feeds, phones, and handheld cameras, we're going to look at some deeply unsettling, unsolved mysteries that really challenge conventional logic. I'm going to present the source material, and you get to weigh the evidence. Because honestly, in an age of total surveillance with smartphones in literally every pocket, what happens when those devices capture things our eyes simply can't explain? To help us make sense of these mysteries, we've structured this explainer as a series of paranormal investigations and eyewitness reports. We're going to break the source material down by anomaly type, so audio, kinetic, and visual. This is going to give us a clear, structured framework to actually analyze the unexplainable.
So, let's kick things off with our first category. Disturbing audio anomalies. These are the sounds we just cannot explain.
Our first piece of evidence takes us to a deeply personal domestic disturbance in Florida. Imagine this. It's around 2 a.m. and a man wakes up to several missed calls. Between 1:44 and 1:54 a.m., he gets this barrage of late-night voicemails from his ex-wife. The source material reveals that as he plays them for the police, the tone aggressively, and I mean absolutely aggressively, escalates. It kicks off at 1:44 a.m. with a completely bizarre claim about hiding in the bushes. But by 1:46, it shifts into these dark, disturbing threats. Fast forward to 1:52 a.m., and the audio is nearly incoherent, just highly disturbed, before finally ending at 1:54.
And that brings us to the actual audio content itself. Listen to the most unsettling phrase from those tapes. She repeats, "You were alive. You're alive. You're alive." Even the responding officers were totally creeped out, asking the man over and over to confirm if it was actually his ex-wife's voice. He insisted the voicemails were completely unaltered. But here is the massive twist. The ex-wife is later found and arrested on stalking charges, right? But investigators discover she had completely deleted all call and message logs from that night from her device. So we have to ask, was this just a disturbed harasser covering her tracks, or did something otherworldly manipulate the network?
All right, let's move on to our next auditory anomaly, shifting from a cellular network to a very real, very abandoned physical space. We've got urban explorers Robert and Dan, and they were inspecting the foundation of an early 1900s house down in Georgia, known locally as the Old Willis Place. Picture this. They're crawling underneath the structure to look at the supports, when suddenly they hear heavy, unmistakable footsteps echoing from the empty floorboards directly above their heads.
Let's break down exactly what they captured at the Willis place. First, you have those heavy footsteps walking directly above them. Second, they immediately do a physical inspection of the one-room structure and find absolutely no one inside. They crawled out, rush right in, completely empty. And finally, as they're filming their outro, looking visibly shaken by the way, a loud, totally unexplained bang interrupts the recording. The crucial question here is, were they dealing with a stealthy, hidden intruder, or maybe the lingering supernatural presence of Mr. Willis himself?
That brings us to Section 2, Kinetic Disturbances. This is where the physical world actually shifts. We're moving from things we simply hear to things that move without any visible physical force. Just watch this chaotic sequence of events captured on CCTV at an internet cafe in Manila. Jen is working alone late at night, just her and the cat. Step 1, clear as day, a pair of headphones drops from the desk. Step 2, a keyboard falls completely to the floor. She runs out in absolute terror, calls Ajette, and comes back just to grab her things. And that is when Step 3 happens. A chair aggressively slides across the room entirely on its own. Now, Ajette points out they have zero history of paranormal content or experiences. It's just a highly localized, extreme kinetic event. And this perfectly illustrates that kinetic anomalies aren't just limited to active businesses. Check out this footage from live streamer Michael exploring an abandoned house. First, a wheelchair moves completely on its own right at the entrance. Then, inside, a door violently swings open immediately following a loud knock. And honestly, the most terrifying part? After hearing a noise, he approaches a curtain, and something unseen strikes aggressively straight through the fabric right at him. Michael obviously fled in a panic. So members of the jury, I ask you, is this a highly elaborate practical joke setup, or a genuine encounter with a violent kinetic entity?
Now, what's really interesting about this next section is that we transition into visual apparitions, shadows caught on tape. Our first visual case actually begins with a sensory trigger. Live streamer Daniel Palomino was walking alone at 2 a.m. in a haunted plaza when he suddenly reported a strong, completely unexplainable burning smell.
His chat immediately filled him in on the tragic local history. An old casino once operated in that exact plaza, and years ago it caught fire, taking several lives. That phantom smell was just the prelude, because mere moments later, the camera caught this. Daniel spotted a plush toy sitting on a staircase, seemingly placed out of nowhere. And right near that doll, the camera captured a dark figure with a pale face standing perfectly still in the shadows. Daniel panicked and took off running. You really have to weigh the evidence here. Was this pale figure and that plush toy directly tied to the tragic casino fire mentioned in the source material? Could it be a lingering visual echo of a past trauma?
Sometimes the visual evidence is deeply tied to much fresher tragedies. Weeks after a fatal car accident, surveillance footage emerged showing a dark, shadow-like figure standing over the wreckage. Now, we've got to look at both sides impartially here. Skeptics argue it's merely a camera effect, a trick of the light on twisted metal. But locals point to the bridge's dark history, calling it death curve, and they claim the original video captured the Grim Reaper himself watching over the scene.
Let's move to a much older resting place and see how this builds. Ghost hunters David and Dell were exploring the early 1800s section of a church cemetery. David suddenly spotted something, a fast-moving, dark shape that darted through the air and vanished straight into a bush. When they went to inspect the bush, totally expecting to find an animal or a bird, they found nothing but an 1842 grave marker hidden in the branches. It was the exact location where the figure disappeared. Did they capture something moving through the cemetery, only to vanish beside its own grave?
Our final piece of visual evidence might just be the most direct one yet. Let's analyze this church security footage from December 2nd, 2021. At 9 p.m., an exterior intruder alarm is triggered. The security team watches the live feed, totally expecting to see a burglar, but instead, the side door slowly opens and miraculously just holds on its own. Then, a faint translucent shape visibly passes through the doorway and moves into the church. Finally, the door closes back up completely. It is a literal, visual manifestation of the supernatural veil lifting, captured totally calmly by a security camera.
And that brings us to Section 4, the final verdict. You are the jury.
We've reviewed a pretty vast array of source material today, from aggressive voicemails to physical disturbances, all the way to shadows lingering over wreckage. So I challenge you to make your own decision about the authenticity of this digital evidence. Are these genuine glitches in reality, where the veil between worlds briefly drops? Are they elaborate internet hoaxes? Or are they simply tragic misunderstandings, just tricks of the light and camera compression?
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. In an age of total surveillance, what does it truly mean when our cameras see things our eyes cannot explain? Does the lens capture a truth we usually ignore? Or does analyzing this original video 3D evidence merely reveal ghosts in the machine? Keep an open mind and always keep questioning what you see. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.